All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning. My name is Nikki Bamonti. I am the Director of Undergraduate Admission here at Hood College and also an alumni. I am thrilled to have so many people here as a part of this conversation. There is a lot going on in the world right now, and we know it's very heavy for many of you, and that this is a really important conversation. And so I just wanted to stress before we get into this that we are not perfect. And while we have some incredibly impressive folks as a part of this panel, none of us are experts. It's just an open conversation, and we really appreciate you being here, and your interest in this topic really gives me, and I think I speak for many of us from Hood, hope for the future, because you represent the future of the world and this college. And so your participation is just so meaningful to all of us. Quick housekeeping, we are currently recording this conversation. If you are not comfortable with that and you would rather leave your camera off and send any messages, you can send them privately to me. I will be monitoring the chat and I will be sort of moderating the conversation. So if that is something that you're not comfortable with, please don't hesitate to let me know. Again, you can do that privately. But if you are comfortable, I encourage you to turn your camera on, to unmute your microphone and really be a part of this conversation. Ask questions. We have some great folks on the panel, and we do really want this to be an active conversation. So we encourage your participation. As I mentioned, we do have some incredibly impressive folks, so I will let them introduce themselves. And I left out my pronouns. Many of us, I think, have them in our Zoom titles, but my pronouns are she and her, and I will ask our folks to start. We'll start with our student representative, and then we have some faculty members and staff, and then you will hear from Alex Rago. So if you all would go ahead and introduce yourselves with your name, your title, and your pronouns.
Hi, I'm Nayia. I'm the student representative. I'm a sophomore here at Hood. I'm president of Feminist Student Union, and my pronouns are she, her.
Hello, everyone. It's lovely to see you. My name's Dr. Amy Gottfried. My parents did not actually name me doctor, but that would have been cool, right? My pronouns are she and her. I teach in the English department, African American literature, what is still erroneously called ethnic literature and environmental writing. And I'm a member of the African American Studies Advisory Board.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Diane Graves. We might have been able to be twins, Amy, if we were both named doctor. But my name, again, is Dr. Diane Graves. I am a child clinical psychologist and a faculty member in the Department of Psychology and Counseling. I'm also the co-faculty advisor for the Diversity Coalition on campus. I direct one of our master's programs, and I am absolutely thrilled to be here. My pronouns are she, her, hers.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Professor Simone Kolysh, and I teach in sociology and social work, as well as the Women's Studies program. I'm on the African American Studies minor program with Amy, and on the President's Council for Transgender Inclusivity, as well as Women's and Gender Studies program. And I'm hoping to also eventually teach in the public health program.
Hi, everyone. My name is India Dennis. I am a Hood alum, class of 2019, but I am also one of the admission counselors here at Hood. And I'm also a part of the DEI Staff Council Committee as well. And my pronouns are she, hers, hers. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Jessica Hammack. I'm a librarian at Hood. I'm also a part of the staff Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Hello.
Hey, everybody. I'm Reverend Beth Omalley. Pronouns are she, her. I'm the dean of the chapel at Hood, which means that I'm the chaplain. I am the supporter for all sorts of spiritual and religious tradition and life at the college. I'm part of most of the groups that have been named already. And I'm also an adjunct faculty teaching in physical education, doing life wellness and health.
Hi, everyone. I'm Timothy Roberts, and I work in financial aid as the financial aid assistant. I've probably gotten to meet a lot of you before via email, but it's good to see you for this conversation today. I'm part of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and I go by he, him pronouns.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ronnie Taylor. I work in the Office of Student Success here at Hood College. I serve on various numbers of committees here at Hood that support diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. I also serve as a coach to our Hoodland Steppers STEP team. My pronouns are she, her, hers.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Rago, and I use they, them pronouns. I am the Assistant Director for Student Engagement for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And today I want to take a little bit of time to tell you about how important diversity, equity, and inclusion is at Hood and our goals while you're here. Hood is not an institution that just states they have DEI. We want it rooted in everything that we do. It's part of our core values. It's part of our strategic plan. And we provide guidance and resources to not only students, but faculty and staff as well. We want to create and foster and maintain a community that acknowledges and embraces diverse backgrounds and experiences and affirms the dignity of every individual. One of the best ways to learn is finding ourselves in the company of people whose backgrounds and beliefs and practices are different than your own. And so we hope to foster that here at Hood. Like I said, we provide resources and supports to the entire campus. We want students to feel at home while having enriching experiences. So whether it's helping students to connect with resources, organizing training sessions for students, faculty, or staff, and providing a listening ear for someone that's working through something, my office and myself are here to serve you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Well, I will open it up to the floor and see students, prospective students, accepted students. What questions do you have for our panelists? What subjects would you like us to talk about? Like I said, you can put that in the chat, but I want to give you a chance to ask your questions if you have them. We can prime the pump while we're waiting for you to think a little bit about that. And I would start with Nayia. I would ask you to talk a little bit about some of the clubs and organizations on campus that are involved with DEI.
So we have Black Student Union, we have Feminist Student Union, we have La Comunidad, we have Queer Student Union, and there's some more. They all fall under like Diversity Coalition, and then they meet last semester it was every other week, and we'd meet and talk about different stuff that was brought up in like club meetings, or if we wanted to plan like an event as Diversity Coalition. Like our Uncensored series that we have on campus, they are a part of like Diversity Coalition, and those are just like a club picks a topic and we just talk about that in depth. There's sometimes there's a guest speaker, sometimes there's not. Sometimes those conversations are really personal, but I think those are really helpful just because it tends to let the student leaders know, and even like some of our advisors for our clubs know how the campus is reacting to certain things or events going on.
That's great. I know some of you are involved with other clubs and organizations on campus. Would you like to speak to any of those other organizations?
I'll talk a little bit about the literary magazine, Wisteria, which may not be what you would expect this conversation to revolve around. But I think it's important to know that there are places where we should talk about diversity that are not specifically called diversity. The literary magazine is for students and students only. It is run by students. Students contribute to it, and it is a place where we encourage many different voices. and that currently the students are running workshops, which I think is fabulous. And I don't have anything to do with it. I'm just the advisor, you know, so I'm the person you call when something is going wrong, or usually when you need money. And let me clarify, I'm not the person you all will call when you need money. I'm the person that the literary magazine staff calls when they need money. But I wanted to emphasize that really every organization should be involved in diversity. Our classroom conversations, when we're talking about literature, it should happen, and I'm thinking that it is starting to happen more and more often in places that did not say this was our sole purpose for being. It should be woven throughout the fabric of the college.
I'm the advisor for some of the student faith groups. So we have InterVarsity Christian Fellowship and Young Life Fellowship of Christian Athletes, Jewish Student Union, which is part of National Hillel, and also the Muslim Student Association. And then our groups are always student-led. So over my time at Hood, we have had Buddhist student groups, atheist student groups, agnostic, neo-pagan. All of those are supported and welcomed. And so we don't get prescriptive about what groups should be on campus. They are always student-led, and that for me is really exciting. And I appreciate the overlap that happens. When I started at Hood, we had a student, I'm not really even sure what his religious background was, but he was part of every single student faith group on campus and most of the other clubs, which I think is like the best way to start to figure out how to learn and who your people are.
Great. Panelists, I'm going to direct this to all of you, and you can unmute when you're ready for your answer, but talk about the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how important is it for you to work at an institution that values this kind of work?
So I can go first there. So for all of you here, all of our panelists know that I actually just started working at Hood. I've been here for about a month. And so I want to, also take a little bit of time to just talk about why I was attracted to Hood. Obviously, diversity, equity, inclusion is in my job title. And so it's something that I'm very passionate about, and really what I want my career to be. I want to help college students discover who they are, get acclimated, find new experiences. And so I actually spent a lot of time looking for a diversity, equity, and inclusion job that I felt was right for me, and specifically an institution that took it seriously. And that's what Hood College was. I mean, not only are the people very welcoming, but they generally care about everyone on campus, and they want, specifically everyone on this panel, wants to make everyone feel welcome, and make Hood College feel like a family. My supervisor and I were doing peer mentor interviews this week, which you new students will be working with throughout the year at your first year at Hood. And one of the things that all of our peer mentors said that they loved about Hood College was the community and the people and how it felt like a close-knit family. And when you have a tight-knit group like that, it creates a brave space to have these diversity conversations.
Hi, everyone. I'll go next. Just because Alex reminded me, I'm also new here. It's been about a year. This is my second semester teaching. And I was attracted to Hood because I was reading student evaluations on a bunch of forums on the internet. And unlike many other schools, I saw a lot of positive reflections from all sorts of students. And one mentioned that it's full of bisexual and lesbian students as a negative, and I took it as a positive, and wanted to bring my whole self to work. And when I interviewed here, I was able to not only say that I'm agender and I use they, them pronouns, that I'm a lesbian, talk about my family, but I also was able to speak that to the fact that my background is varied, doesn't take a traditional path, that I'm pregnant, that I need support as a mother of 4. And I found that I'm able to, at the very least, teach others who are faculty and staff and my students and feel comfortable enough, but I know there's always more work to be done. So one of the reasons I believe I was hired is to just push the conversation forward. And I have a background in educating people who are my peers, as well as, educating students. And so I think about, how to teach differently in a way that weaves, like Dr. Gottfried said, issues that involve us all, throughout my curriculum, but also thinking about how I can help staff and faculty, learn about some of these conversations. And so this event was really important for me because, representation is important, but also just to show up for my colleagues and say that, we're working on this together. And I think it's been a difficult year for everybody in terms of the pandemic and so many other things. And I know that Hood College students want to be part of conversation around what to do. And, and I think, by taking a wide variety of courses, you'll be able to get started on some vocabulary that can help you articulate your position on some of these things. And if not, then I've been encouraging my students to ask for that conversation or that articulation from their professors, to say that, this is what's currently going on. And I hope that you all feel safe to do so in the future, and welcome.
Coming from a background in public school and government and nonprofit, it was important for me to work at an institution that valued that diversity, equity, and inclusion, because I felt comfortable enough to sit in spaces or in these types of groups and to be able to say that I'm a proud trans woman of color, and to be able to relate that to the student experience here at Hood, and to be able to give them a narrative and a holistic approach to what is happening here at the institution was very important. Being valued enough to sit in on committees and ask for my input and opinion and, just best practices and how we can get to the greater goal of the college was the selling point for me. And for that, I'm committed to Hood.
You've heard from, this is Diane Graves, you've heard from some of our newest faculty and staff members, and I'm thrilled to have them here. I've been here now almost 10 years, so I can speak a little bit longer with a little bit longer window. And one of the reasons that I came to Hood was exactly what has been mentioned, the sense of family. I came from a big, large public institution in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and decided that teaching a class with 450 students was great, but I missed really getting to know my students and having that kind of personal relationship and mentoring opportunity that I just wasn't able to have there. And so that very same class here at Hood has 25 students, which is an intro survey class. It's taught by a tenured faculty member, not a teaching assistant. And I have the chance to get to know you. And I have the chance to hear your visions and dreams for yourself as you're figuring them out. And I can pivot quickly in my classes and integrate material that is relevant to things happening in the world today, things that are relevant to my students in that moment. And I think that lends our classes to be very vibrant. I like to think of my classes as not having any walls. So all material, including the difficulties we've all experienced and are currently experiencing, bringing those into the classroom. I mean, what better class than in your psychology classes to think about why people think what they think, feel what they feel, and do what they do. And so we also have the psychology club. So again, another opportunity to get involved as a student. Isn't directly affiliated with an affinity space per se, but obviously is a great vehicle and the folks in that organization use it as a vehicle to educate campus around issues of mental health, issues of the intersectionality when it comes to mental health and people of color, and what are some of the things that we can do to better inform ourselves and take care of ourselves in the midst of a global pandemic and in the midst of this of the racism and graphic visual imagery and stories that we're hearing about things happening around the world today, and in the recent past. So I'm so proud to be part of the Hood community. I'm so proud of how we are reaching out to diverse communities. And while we've got some wonderful new diversity coming into Hood, they were hired because they're damn good at their jobs. And so it just also happens to be that they have a wonderful tapestry of identity to enhance our community. So I think we are totally the winners there. So I really encourage each of you, if you have any questions about faculty or classes, you see several faculty members on this call, you can always reach out to Nikki Bamonti and she can get you our contact information, or you can wave your mouse across the screen, see our names, and go ahead and find us on the website. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll be happy to talk to you about those questions as well.
Nikki, there's a question in the chat. Do you want?
Yes. Does anyone want to address the question about diversity when it comes to people on the autism spectrum?
I can, as my office. So I work in the Student Success Center, and our office houses the Office of Accessibility Services. And one of the things that we really touch point here at Hood is we do not see your disability, we see your ability. Due to the fact that our class sizes are so close and we have such a close-knit community, we work really closely together to roll out an accommodation plan to your faculty members, something that will mimic what you've had in high school or other institutions that will follow you throughout your entire time here at Hood. There are lots of affinity groups surrounding students with disabilities, whether that be our own version of Best Buddies, but we've learned here at Hood that our students that come from a background of Asperger's or autism, they thrive in the area so much that they become our champions in some of our bigger level groups that, you wouldn't know unless they self-disclose that. And again, in terms of that inclusion piece here, we have everything that will provide you with the tools for success, whether that will be one-on-one student success coaching and or use of our testing center, accessive technology, the list can go on and on and on, but that is not something that we're lacking here at Hood.
I see an additional question in the chat about people with ADHD or ADD. So yes, I think, Ronnie will only echo that. Yes, that holds true for a variety of different issues. One of the pieces of advice I'd like to give students, not only because I'm a clinical psychologist, but also as a faculty member, is that for students with various different accommodations, you've had the tremendous benefit of having, potentially your family members and your school help you structure your resources and utilizing those resources in your high schools. It's very different at college because one of the things that you will need to do is take on that advocacy for yourself. And one of the biggest mistakes that I'll see students do is to think, I won't need those. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to give it a go on my own freshman year. And what ends up happening is that college transition is a lot harder than it needs to be. And I see this as an equity issue. It's just, it's like creating additional barriers that make it harder for you on doing something that's already really hard. Exciting, but hard. And so I just want to strongly encourage everyone listening here who might be interested in looking into accommodations, whatever school you choose to go to ultimately, that it's going to be the shift in responsibility from your family to you. And it is time for you to advocate for yourself, work with the Office of Student Success, whatever the office is called at that institution, and go make sure that you're registered with them from the beginning. And that way you have access to those resources and you can decide maybe in one class you might want to use them, maybe in another class you might not, but at least you have them at your fingertips. and you're putting yourself on equal footing as your other classmates who aren't dealing with similar kinds of issues, so that you can get the most out of your classes. What'll happen is once you register with that office, your faculty, you'll either be given a note to give your faculty, or your faculty are automatically given a note, but usually it's always good to make sure they have it. And then your faculty member will, I know at Hood, we're always like, what can we do to help? How can we work these accommodations into our class so that you can get the most out of this class? Because that's at the end of the day, that's the thing that's most important for me, is that you master the content that we're covering in our course, and you enjoy it, and you see the passion and the joy in the learning process. So, for anyone here that might have a current accommodation plan in their high school, just know that that's going to be something to add to your to-do list. Moving in, get registered with the office so that you have resources. Hood has a tremendous depth of resources available for students with all kinds of ability issues, and in ways to make it so that you can enjoy yourself on campus. Without using those resources and trying to go it alone, you're going to be working a whole lot harder, and college is going to be a lot more difficult, and you might find yourself getting into a hole that's going to be hard to get out of in the next couple of years. And so please take this as words of advice, cautionary tales, and just know that faculty are here for you from the very moment you set foot on campus, and even before you set foot on campus in forums like this, where we want you to be successful and we want things to be equitable. And so that covers whatever issues you may have, whether it has to do with identity, whether it has to do with ability levels, whatever that is. At a school like Hood, we can embrace you, and we can provide the resources so that you can have an incredible 4 years of college.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say that along with what Dr. Graves said, it's important to consider disability as a public health conversation, as a structural conversation. So never really only think about it as a personal difference or whatever. I celebrate disability. I am here to destigmatize mental illness. My background is in pre-medicine and public health, and I have OCD. I'm open with my students about that, and they're open, more open with me about their mental illness or disability. I have children with disabilities, ADD, and all that. And it's important to have that be part of how we teach. And the pandemic has allowed a lot of us to learn new ways to connect people and to engage people and to understand people's situations and abilities to learn, and so I think a lot of faculty shifted gears to scale back assignments, to scale back or rethink assessment, because a lot of these issues are about, how do we test? Should we time? Should we record? Should we require cameras? And so we've been all really thinking about that as an issue of ability, or at least I hope we have been. So I really commend you for simply putting it out there, because it is a conversation, that we should just include in any conversation such as this. And often disability gets, erased in a sense, and people carry it as a personal component, but it's not. It's a social, conversation for us all, as we're all on, a variety of spectrums, diagnosed or undiagnosed, and so that's important. Thank you.
Yeah, I can also say something about work study in this way. I think in the library, for me, the students that I have I think longest lasting relationships with are our student workers. And we try really hard to make this an experience that's not only going to get you paid, but that is also going to help you learn and to find a job for you that fits your abilities, your interests. And so, yeah, I think especially with the pandemic, we have made accommodations for students who are remote. We found projects that they can work on that they are really interested in. We've had students compiling resources for mental health and wellness. We've had students who, are on campus who are still kind of doing some sort of customer service jobs. We have students working in the archive. So, I mean, there are all sorts of different positions, and I think Hood does a really good job of trying to make work really inclusive and to match you with your abilities and your interests there as well.
Thank you all. We have a question in the chat regarding clubs for international students or students with international parents.
Yeah, so working in the Office of Student Engagement, on top of having the African Student Union and La Comunidad, we're also in the process of getting an Asian American organization up and running, but we also do just have a general Global Citizens Club. It might be inactive right now, but it's really easy to get those up and running. And if there's a club we don't have, ask. And we'll make sure that we can get it up and running. There is a form to fill out, but you can walk into the office, ask Sarah or I, and we want to make sure that everyone is represented and everybody has a place where they feel safe. And so if you think if there's a club that we don't have, we'll make it happen.
Also, just to add on to what Alex said, you guys can go on Pergola Connect, and that has like all of our clubs and some of the events that they have posted, and you can kind of see what each club does, and you can make your judgments off of that too.
I will say we have over 75 clubs here at Hood, so you can definitely find something that fits, but if not, we'll make it work.
I was just going to say, go ahead, Dr. Gottfried.
A tiny bit of history, because I'm maybe the oldest person here. We used to have things like International Student Dinner, the Fashion Club, the dance show, and these are all student-generated things. So just a reminder that diversity is also joy. And I would love to see some of these things come back. And now we have another question.
Are there support opportunities for students struggling with depression, anxiety, or grief? Great question.
So we have not just the counseling center, but I think Active Minds, which is a national student group of peers supporting peers. And it probably is true that there are more people who come to Hood who already are at Hood who have something that they're dealing with related to mental health. And the supports are there for you, not only just in terms of what sort of the typical things are with counseling center and accommodations and those sorts of things, my office, but also Active Minds, because we recognize that peers helping peers really make the most difference. So often when folks come to college, this is apropos of what Dr. Graves said, folks want to sort of reinvent themselves, and oftentimes that comes with an idea of I don't want to talk about what I perceive my weaknesses are. And in fact, being honest about who we all are and what it is that we need and how we can complement each other in terms of strength is really important for us. And so there are lots of opportunities for students, but I think one of the most exciting is things like Active Mind. We also have a chapter of National Alliance of Mental Illness in Frederick, and so we have really terrific partnerships in the community that highlight lots of these issues and really just fabulous opportunities for people to get involved in the community.
Just kind of add to what Beth Omalley shared, and that is that we do have a counseling center on campus for our students. It's actually working through the Frederick Memorial Hospital, which is right next to our campus, for an outpatient clinic. It's all going to have a few counseling sessions there. Is all free. It's all completely confidential. You can walk in, schedule appointments. And so there's definitely that resource on campus for you personally to get immediate help from a therapist who can help guide you to the appropriate best long-term support services for you. So we do have a counseling center. Most campuses will, but I really am proud of our counseling center. We actually have a master's in counseling program in the Department of Psychology and Counseling, which is a K-CARP accredited counseling program. So some of our students do their internships there, but we also have full-time and part-time professionals who are working through the counseling center to support our students. Could we use more? We can always use more, but I think we recognize the need. especially coming out of COVID, and how interesting it's going to be for you on a college campus, because you might not have really been on a campus for a while. And it's going to be a big transition for everyone. And I think there's going to be some worries about what's it going to be like to be around a lot of people and socializing again with that level of stimulation. And plus all of, the question mentions grief. There's been a tremendous amount of loss that's happened associated with what we've all been going through. And so I think that that's something we also want to embrace and lead into here on campus, knowing that students that are coming are going to have a collective sense of loss over what you hoped school was going to be like, what you thought your senior year was going to be like, even just the whole idea of going off to college, what you thought that was going to be like, has all shifted. So there's grief in even just that part as well. But of course, for families who have been dealing with sick and family members that are no longer with us because of the virus, we are open-hearted to recognizing that and embracing opportunities to support our students in their collective and individual grief.
I'm just going to add this, and this is not my area, but your faculty advisor can be your first stop. Please don't hesitate to come to your advisor with any questions. We may not be the right person to answer them, but we are the person who can put you in contact with others. And sometimes even if you're just struggling and you need a face to talk to. I have also found a lot of classroom discussions, and I think my faculty peers will agree, have taken other turns this year. Sometimes students need to be in a space where they can talk to each other and say, this is awful. Look what happened. Can we talk about it? And I know I'm not just speaking for myself. We are open to listening. I'd love to tell you that we have all the answers. But most of us know that the PhD does not mean that you have all the answers, that the degree does not give you that. But we are absolutely willing to give you a space to process things or just talk them out as well. And I can only echo you, Dr. Graves, we really need a lot more therapists. So if that counseling program can like speed up and, hurry up that pipeline, that would be great.
We're working on it. I also want to say that another great resource will be your peer mentor. So like I said, all incoming students, whether you're a first year student or a transfer student, you will be getting your own peer mentor. And we are actually hiring so many peer mentors that our peer mentors are only going to have a group of students between 10 and 12. And so you will also have a small kind of cohesive unit right there. And that peer mentor will be there for you throughout the entire year. So if you have a question about a professor, if you have a question about a class, sports, events, these are the students that we are singling out and saying, they're very active in our hood community, they're doing well in school, and they've found ways to cope and engage. And so those are going to also be like, they're your age, right? And so they know directly what you're experiencing as a hood college student.
Beth, would you like to talk about some of the faith communities that are nearby that, a lot of students sometimes are interested in that. And I believe we have a list that we can provide for students via email after.
Yeah, it's funny. It's usually the parents who ask me, so what are the religious communities? And the kids slowly back away, hoping to get over to the refreshments before their parents notice. But if a faith community is something you're looking for or that's important to you, one of the great things about Frederick is we have lots of places within walking distance. And that's really wonderful. And so we can make that available to you pretty easily. The other thing that I want to just make a plug for, sort of going back to the question about depression, is we have meditation and mindfulness groups on campus. And so while it's not really therapeutic, it really is a wonderful opportunity for folks to kind of learn how to manage emotion. And also those groups become groups that support each other. So I wouldn't necessarily say that they're faith communities, but they're deeply spiritual. So we're not we're not necessarily promoting a particular religious tradition, although we use different resources from lots of different wisdom traditions. But I think it becomes a safe space for folks to talk about what they're hoping for, what they're living with. And I have just been really excited to see students use those opportunities, along with just the idea that these are tools that work for them. So I love the story about a group of bio and biochem students who had a big inorganic chemistry exam. And I just happened to find them in the meditation room, which is in the basement of the chapel. And they were doing something called, we call it officially dynamic breathing, but it's called the chicken breath, which is this energy breath. And they were all in there because they were so stressed out about this big inorganic exam. And they took it on themselves to get together, to get in there. And they were just like this little group of support system. And it was just wonderful to see. I never got a sense of exactly how they did on the exam, but boy, they felt better going in. And so that's just another opportunity for folks to use that I think connects to that sense. One of the things that's a commitment for me is for students to kind of be their whole selves. So what your purpose is and what your sense of questioning about the world is, those are conversations I love to have with people. A lot of times folks come to school and what they're exposed to kind of rocks their world, especially if they have a family tradition that's different from what they are feeling themselves drawn to. And my office is a safe space to have those conversations. And I just think it's really wonderful that folks get to ask those questions. Who am I and what do I believe and why? I don't give answers to that. It's just a safe place to explore that.
Happy to take more of your questions. I would like to hear from those of you who attended Hood as a student. So Nayia, we have India and also Tim, about what made you make that connection with Hood? What drew you to Hood? And as we talk to these accepted students who are getting ready to make that big decision, if you could talk about that decision as you made it.
I can go first. So I live in Michigan. That's where I'm at right now because I'm virtual. So when I first came to Hood, like I got on campus and everybody was so nice. It was so welcoming. Like it just kind of felt like home right away. And so I was like, okay. And then I visited a couple of times and each time it was still like that home feeling. It never, like that feeling never went away. And even like being on campus my whole freshman year, like that feeling still never went away. And if anything, it got stronger. Like I've made friends, I've made connections with a lot of my professors. I've made connections with people in different areas at Hood. And it's just become more of a home environment for me. And so that's what it was. Plus campus is really pretty. So I love that.
I will follow up. I always like to think my story when I talk about Hood is very unique because in lots of ways, when you're going through the college decision process, you're like, you have your number one school, like and it's the one and you go there. But in lots of times, Hood was actually my default school. But when I was going through the college process and touring schools, Hood was always a campus that just stayed in the back of my mind. Like Nayia said, it's really beautiful. And I remembered my tour guide and I remembered just the people that I connected with. And it was always something that just stuck there. And I remember for May 1, I was really upset. I went back and forth with my mom about decisions and, I wasn't sure at the time, that Hood was it. And I just continued to visit and I continued to connect with professors. And I met our dean of students who also remember who I was when I came to move-in day. So those connections and the consistent amount of ways that Hood just put themselves in front of me, really, and just cultivated that close-knit community and just really wrote me into it. And, now that I look back on it as an alum, I know that I would choose Hood all over again for the reasons of having a close-knit community, having faculty and staff who will sit in front of you if you need to cry, or will greet you with chocolate if you need it, or will stop in the middle of class if something is going on and we'll talk about it. And those are the things that are really, really important and pivotal when you're thinking about your college career, because of course you're going to strive for your career success and what you want to do after college, but also you are living here. You are spending a significant amount of time on campus. So your decision is going to be, how are they going to foster all of the things of you? And will they be able to attribute to your whole self? So Hood was definitely that for me. And I just really appreciated having all of those connections and being able to continue that and share that with you all. So I hope when you're making your decision, I know it's different and scary and overwhelming, especially in the middle of a pandemic, but just continue to come to events like this, try to get on campus and get a feel for it as much as you can, because that really does help make the decision all better.
And going off of making decisions, I actually transferred up from the South, and it was Texas. And I found a level of openness and welcomeness that I had never really gotten to experience before. When meeting new people on campus, I got to make friends, and I didn't find myself faltering when I would mention that I had a same-sex partner. And that was very new for me, and I absolutely loved it. I felt like I could bloom as kind of a person outside of classes, but also inside of classes with the discussions that were occurring. And it was just a really great feeling to feel home, if that makes sense, at your college. Yeah, I just felt really home. I guess that's the main piece of it was for Hood, or that made Hood really stick out in my mind. But going on the decision-making process for it, I think it's also really important to keep in mind financial aid. I know that it's not the most fun section of college, but there are people in our financial aid office does understand diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we know that working with the life events that are occurring inside and outside of the campus affect the way that you're approaching paying for college, and we're always here to listen. And that was another thing that I really experienced at Hood. And now I work for the financial aid office as a student worker and going on financial aid assistant. So I think the growth was really the part of Hood that I loved so much. And yeah, that's kind of it.
I wonder if I could just jump in and almost go back to the beginning. So one of the things I'm looking at is I'm looking at all of our squares. Nikki started out by talking about sort of what's going on in the world, and Tim just alluded to that. One of the things that I think has been really wonderful to see at Hood, lots of us on this call are part of the African American Studies Advisory Committee. And that was a group that challenged the college, challenged our colleagues to be part of something we call the race cafes. And so these are really honest conversations about what's going on in the world. We have way too many of these instances of racial violence. But instead of kind of burying our heads in the sand and doing business as usual, one of the things that the college has done is have these race cafes, and they have been open to everybody. And Dr. Gottfried has coordinated some, Dr. Graves, Dr. Kolysh, lots of folks. And there's just a level of honesty that I think is really important, because we don't teach and we don't learn in a vacuum. We learn because all of these other things are going on in our lives. And so sort of apropos of while we're on this particular call, there's a level of honesty at Hood that I really appreciate. We're not perfect, but we're willing to have some conversations and to listen to each other, and I hope learn from each other rather than just sort of think, it's not going on. All I have to do is this paper. All I have to do is this exam. I have to check this off, jump through this hoop. What you're living through, what we're all living through, is important for us to contextualize.
And kind of to echo off that, a lot of the times when a lot of these things are going on, like you will have like a lot of the professors, like they will ask you how you're feeling, and like will you have a discussion about it in class. And I think that's also really important, because they're not afraid to be like, like I understand, or even like I don't understand, and help me understand. And I think that's really important, because just as much as we learn from them, they also are willing to learn from us. And I think that's another thing that really goes into making Hood feel like home.
Thank you all so much. I want to be sensitive to time. We're getting very close to an hour. It has just flown by. We can stick around to answer questions for those of you who have questions privately for any of us. Some of us can stick around. Our contact information is all in the chat, and I would just ask if anyone has any final words to share. I welcome any of our panelists or any students to offer those. We know it is it's a challenging time in the world, but it's also a very stressful time to be a senior in high school. And you've got a lot on your shoulders right now, and there's a lot of pressure from everywhere to make big decisions. And so anything that we can do to help you through the process and as you make those decisions, that is what we're here for you now as an accepted student. And when you are here on campus, we will be here for you too. So you are accepted, you are already part of our family. So we welcome any help that you need. We're happy to be here for you.
I also just wanted to let the students know that are here with us today that we are currently running with our office an accepted students event where we meet with new students to discuss financial aid packages as well as FAFSAs. We really do understand that this is the most exciting time in your life right now, but we have to talk about finances as well, and we promise that we'll make it fun. So I'm going to put the link inside of the chat, and then we look forward to meeting with you. And my email is also in the chat as well. So just let me know if you have any questions about FAFSA, anything like that. I'm always happy to help.
Great point, Tim. Finances are a huge piece of making that college decision.
Just want to wish you all luck, whatever you decide to do. We hope you'll come here, but wherever you go. And, you know, stay safe. That's what we're all saying to each other every day.
I think that's a wonderful message to end on. We wish that you all stay safe, and thank you for being here with us today. And we hope to see you on campus soon. Thank you.